Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
Hey, folks, we're in for a good show for SimplyTrade podcast, and we are so thankful for y'all. It's, Lalo and I have been traveling quite a bit. The staff's been traveling. There's been a lot of cool things going on. It seems to be conference season, which we're going to be talking about that in here in just a moment. But it's really great when Lalo, when we get out and are able to rub elbows with some folks we haven't seen in a while and got to meet some really new folks into the industry. So it's one of those where we're back in the studio. We're talking about some of the current issues. And folks, please, please, please share us, like us, connect with us on LinkedIn. Because our show is doing well. It's growing in popularity, all because of y'all. So we thank you for that. Secondly, it's because of the guests, and we've got a couple of cool folks on that we're going to get to talk today about. But with that, Lalo, I guess it's trying to get back into the regular, just even a regular weekend and whatnot for us. How are you guys doing down in El Paso?
Doing great. And I guess just also, like in the interest of time, I just want to go right into and just talk about this conference. We are going to be talking about a conference that is coming up here in June. To be exact, it will be June 10th to the 12th. Sorry about that, everybody. So June 10th to the 12th in Fort Lauderdale. We were just there for NCBFAA, so we're going back for AAEI. So we're starting at the top of the list of the alphabet of all the associations. So AAEI will be having their annual conference there in Fort Lauderdale, and this one is again one of those that are like really intense with a lot of government updates and information that you can get. The one thing that I really think is really cool, Andy, is that a lot of the people that are speaking at this conference have been guests on our show, so we must be doing something right.
I'll tell you what, you know what, when we first started this, I was kind of like, okay, we'll go through a few connections and then hopefully, folks will want to join our show. And there has not been a shortage of folks to sit in. So I guess, we have been. With that, I'm going to say, folks, we're going to be talking about AAEI. As Lalo said, it's the American Association of Exporters and Importers. It is a very old organization. Unlike those that are talking here, they're as young as can be. But I can almost remember when it started, but not quite. But no, seriously, we have Lenny Feldman and Kathy Neilan, and Lenny has been around. And if you miss him at any of the conferences, then you're not looking, because he's the tallest guy around and he's got the greatest smile. Kathy is one that is very well respected in the industry, and she's been around. She knows a lot of folks. So it's like, my goodness, I'm hoping your smarts rub off on me whenever we get to meet. But with that, Lenny, why don't you tell folks again, just for the sake of the odd chance that somebody doesn't know who you are, tell folks what you're up to, what your position is, who you're with, and Kathy, and then we'll go to you.
Great. Well, hey, everybody, and thank you, Andy and Lalo. It's great to see you and be with you again. I've seen you on the road, and I will continue to do that. And a lot of you are listening today. I'm Lenny Feldman, if I haven't had the pleasure to meet you yet. I've been at it now for about 3 decades, starting my career as an attorney at U.S. Customs Service, now, of course, CBP, as a senior attorney there. Ran out into the .com/.bomb world, unfortunately for me, with software development. And then worked my way through Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg, which is one of the, if not the largest independent customs and trade practices in the country, if not the world. And I'm now honored to be one of the managing partners and owners of the firm. And on my spare time, Not only do I serve as counsel to the national customs brokers and forwarders who I love dearly, but equally, I love our importers and exporters, and I'm serving on the board of governors of the AAEI, and I'm pleased to be co-chairing this year's conference with the amazing Kathy Neal.
Thank you. So my name is Kathy Neal. I am the Global Trade Compliance Director for Johnson Controls. I've been with Johnson Controls for about a year. Prior to that, I was with other manufacturing companies for most of my career. I've been doing this work for many, many years, longer than probably most of you. And I have to say that I still enjoy it. Every day is a new day. Things change all the time. If it's not changing for import regulations, export regulations are changing, or there's something going on overseas that we need to know about and be aware of. So it's been an exciting, exciting career to have for many years. It's I always thought that I would do this until I got bored, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm still waiting for that day, which I don't think will happen at all. So happy to be here with you all.
That and appreciate it. It's like, all right. So, with that, Lila, did you want to open up with anything before we get into this?
Just want to acknowledge that Kathy was one of my, although she didn't know she was directly a mentor of mine, but when I first started in this, she was one of the first people that I ran into in my career. As you all may know, she was here in El Paso, and so obviously I am still here in El Paso, but she was a client of mine when we developed our software for NAFTA. And believe me, if had it not been for her and, of course, others that put in some input, our software wouldn't have been as great as it was. And I just want to thank her for that, because she was key to our software success. So anyway, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. I guess just as a fun fact of how I got to know Kathy and when I started in my career as well. So.
Well, let's talk about and get into AAEI. First off, what is the main function of AAEI? I mean, it's like we're talking committees, we're talking different things. Oh, okay, fine. We were talking off camera, and I have my own personal opinion on that. So, I mean, but I'm going to let you guys open it up here. And who wants to start to say, what's the organization all about?
So AAEI primarily does three major functions for importers and exporters. We have committees, multiple committees, and there's a lot of work that gets done during the committee meetings, on the committee calls, where we talk about issues that are relevant to importers and exporters and relevant to what's happening today, new regulations that are being issued or proposed regulations where we think we might be able to make a change. We also have the annual conference that we're talking about today. The annual conference is an opportunity for people who practice trade compliance around the world to get together and talk about what's happening in global economics, global politics that impacts our day-to-day jobs. And then AAEI also does advocacy. And the advocacy work that AAEI does can be limited to a particular single issue, or it can be as broad as trade in general. How do we advocate for trade facilitation, which is something that we've been, trying to advocate for many, many years. So AAEI, as you said, has been around for a long time, and they do a lot of really good work in the trade community.
Outstanding. So with that, with the annual conference, is there a particular theme that's going on this year, or what's why an annual conference here? Is it to get everybody up to speed? Is it to introduce the organization, or what are you looking for?
Well, I'll go a little bit, Kathy, but she's welcome to add on. Kathy and I decided with the AAI team to call it Forging a New Trade Renaissance. So it's not going to be your regular Renaissance festival that you might go to with the jousting and the turkey leg and all that, but don't be surprised if you see a little bit of that around there. We might have a few surprises up our sleeve to make it fun, but we thought Renaissance was an interesting word to use because there are just so many changes abounding out there, right, in the economy. And we're not just talking about the trade wars that are out there and the tariffs, but there are new rules that are being written right before our very eyes that are going to impact us definitely for the rest of our careers and probably for years for those who are coming up in their careers, whether it's regulations, whether it's new legislation, trade transformation, de minimis and e-commerce, what's going on with forced labor, the trade disruptions that are out there. So yes, there are opportunities. Yes, there are risks. Yes, there's automation and AI, which we'll probably talk a little bit about today as well, which everyone has questions about. But there's just so much going on, the confluence of automation, compliance, enforcement, transportation. We see it as a renaissance if you could harness all of those aspects in an opportune way.
With that, let me just ask this, is that as you're looking at it, how long is the conference? 1 day, 2 days? I can't remember.
It's 3 days, 2 days of sessions, 1 day of, I think there's going to be a benchmarking session on the third day. So it should be a great opportunity. And if you haven't been to one of AAEI's benchmarking sessions yet, strongly encourage you to join this one at the conference, because it's really an opportunity to talk to other practitioners and see what they're dealing with. What are their issues? And, where are they finding assistance, and how are they making some of these issues not as impactful as they otherwise could be?
With with the 3 days and all that, I mean, obviously those that are members, you don't have to be a committee member or in leadership to participate in this. Is that although it's good to sit in on some of these things, I would assume. So it's in looking at it, getting up to speed. Is the conference a good place to see what your priorities are for the year, or is that done offline?
And I think traditionally the folks that we've seen at AEI are not only the famous C-suite folks, that we do have owners of companies who are in charge at the C-suite level, CFOs, COOs, you name them, who are coming, but also what I call the MD suite. I'm not talking about your doctor, although they kind of are doctors, the managers and directors at that level, who need to figure how to communicate best with their C-suite, to interact with them appropriately, as well as some of the newer folks they're working with. And I think at all those levels, it's really going to be a combination of the tactical and the strategic. That's what I think makes this conference so unique, right, Kathy? That we're not just here to regurgitate, put up slides about the laws and the regulations, and that's great, and there's a good time for that. But this is really assuming you have a good base knowledge of that, and now you need to take it to the next level, right? And I think the programs we have, I would describe as providing impactful education. It's not just the 101s, but how do you take what you know, get current on it, build upon it so it's impactful, not only for you and your company, but also when you interact with customs, because we will have those government officials there as well as from some of the other government agencies. And if you go on to Congress, and targeted advocacy, right? How do you become an advocate for your company, not only on the Hill, but how do you become an internal advocate at your company amongst, again, the C-suite, and the folks that you work with? So it really is operating at that level, which makes this conference unique.
And this is something that I think is really important. You were talking about how to become an advocacy on different things on the agenda items, but one of the things that, in my personal opinion here, that I think is vital is that the folks involved in, regulatory and industry affairs. I mean, you have your compliance, you have your operations folks and all of that. And sometimes you're wearing multiple hats. So you may be in a situation where you're covering a lot of this, but especially on the regulatory and industry affairs, the importance of communicating effectively within your own company to the key parties involved. And that would be your C-suite, as you just mentioned, but also, your peers and then down the chain. So with that, at the conference and all that, is that something that's going to be able to empower the attendees with the appropriate knowledge so that they can come back and communicate effectively? on what's going on, what the priorities. This is a good thing for us, and here's why. And here's something that's a priority, but it doesn't really affect our company, and here's why, or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. I think whenever you're working for a large company or even a small company, the amount of attention that you get from the C-suite is by its nature somewhat limited. So it's really important that you have a strong message, a distilled message about what issues impact your company the most. And like you said, Andy, there's a lot of things happening in trade, and there's things that may impact my company and there's things that may not. So do I really need to mention, the things that are not important to our company to the C-suite? It might be good to give them, a base idea of what's happening, but we really want to get their attention, their resources, the funding, if that's what we need, or whatever we need to make our processes successful. We need to get that attention on those issues. And in order to do that, you have to be able to concisely explain what's happening, and in a way that gets there so that they understand what the impact is going to be.
So let's talk a little bit about at the conference. I'm sure there's going to be particular updates on the different committees. AAEI. I mean, I personally was heavily involved for many years with AAEI and on several different committees, but I've slept since then a few times. So, my memory's as long as a turtle's tail and just as fast. So you're going to have to bring me up to speed. What committees have y'all got now with AAEI, and what's going on with them?
Well, the committees kind of go across the board, the gamut, right? We're everything from apparel and textiles to forced labor to an international committee that's looking at logistics issues to, of course, a customs committee, export, other government agencies. Kathy, fill in one or two that come to mind that I might have missed, but there's quite a few committees at work, and you're going to see them in play. The leadership of those committees, by and large, work with Kathy and I to put together their segments. So it worked really nicely for the conference, because not only are you going to see us bringing in government officials as well as some elected officials, or formerly elected officials, I should say, to speak on those sessions, but those committee chairs, the committee leadership is bringing the work that they've been doing with them the past year, those perspectives, into those sessions, into those panels, to really provide an update to the folks who are attending the conference.
Exactly. I think, there's the Trade Policy Committee, for example, is going to be very well represented on a panel on how to advocate within your company for trade. And so I think that'll be very useful for everybody who works in the trade compliance area.
Kathy, that's something that right there, let's stop for a second. It's folks that are listeners here, and it's like, listen to what Kathy just mentioned, is that there's going to be a session on how to basically gain support for the issues on the regulatory and industry affairs agenda items within your own company. That's a lot. That's very important. You can't just assume that you attend a conference and then everybody knows things. And we've already talked about how to communicate effectively, but also then when you're communicating, you've got to learn, what is it that you're wanting of people? Here's something to bring you up to speed, and it's something that and make it concise. Don't give a long dissertation. But the other thing is, what action do you want? You want to communicate the issues and then spell it out on, I need your support from your area for what? To go with you to a conference, to go with you on a conference call or something, to go and attend meetings with your C-suite and talk through things. I mean, there's things that you need to look through to say, here's the impact. I need information. If this came in and these rules changed, how's it going to impact your department, positive or negative, and those kinds of things. So, Kathy, I will say, you might want to go back through and say, people that have gone through and looked at that, I know that early in my career, I didn't have that kind of a session. I had to kind of, work it out through, thick and thin on trying to get some support and say, well, they need to know this. Well, it's like, how do you get they? And that they is proverbial, your peers, your upper management, and all those kinds of things. So I don't know, guide me along on this. So what do you think, how important that kind of a session is?
I think that's probably one of the key sessions of the conference. I think knowing how to explain the issues that are relevant to the C-suite is so important. And like you said, having your ask. What are you going to ask for as a result of this conversation? Again, your time with the C-suite is very limited. They have a lot of things to consider. Trade compliance is one of many things, critical, but one of many critical things that they need to consider. So what do you want to convey, and what are you going to ask for as a result of this conversation? And it could, like you said, it could just be, follow-up meetings. It could be resources. It could be funding to go to the next conference. It could be, watch out for this. We need advocacy. We need our government affairs team to be looking out for this particular issue and this proposed legislation. It runs a gamut. So extremely, extremely critical. And this is something that I think I wish I had learned early on in my career, is how to make this relevant to, like you said, the management of the company.
So no, I was going to say, so Lenny and I mean, I guess if you want to finish that point, Andy, go ahead, and then I'll start another question here.
No, go ahead, because I was going to shift it a little bit. Go ahead first. Okay,
so what I was going to say is, this being, I was again researching the agenda and just digging in a little bit deeper, and I saw your Washington Insiders trade policy session that y'all are going to have. So, being an election year, of course, we're going to elect a president and a whole new Congress. Well, it looked like this was specifically built for that. And just like, what kind of takeaways are we going to expect to see from that? Because of, it's obviously going to be like, what are we going to need to plan, depending on who wins and how the leadership focuses, I guess, going forward in 2025. But is that the purpose or the reason why this session was created?
Absolutely. I think it's to provide insights, not only as you make it through the rest of the year, but what could be out on the horizon, right? We've seen now 2 administrations that were very strong, I think, in all our opinions, looking at a protectionist type of trade policy. 2 administrations, not just one. The question is, based on what we've seen these last 4 years, can it get even more protectionist? And there are some real fundamental questions we already have companies asking, such as, is there a legal right and ability to even increase tariffs further? How could that be done? These are serious questions for companies. What do free trade agreements look like potentially, and preference programs? GSP is on the table right now. You have to look at that. You have to hear what that could mean, not only from the standpoint of retroactivity, but also they're looking at a 35, 40, 45, 50% type of GSP regional value content if this goes through. I can bet that there are going to be people in this room at the conference, people listening now are thinking, I didn't know about that, and I might have to adjust my sourcing to be able to take advantage of GSP just to see those percentages go up. And then there are fundamental questions. Can you still take advantage of the 15% US content for that? Probably yes. But these are real, not only C-suite, but they are MD suite, management director suite questions that you're going to need to know, and you're going to be asked to look into that crystal ball and forecast. This will help you actually say, well, I might not have the crystal ball, but I have the magic 8 ball, and I might be able to tell you a little bit about what's ahead. So that's what we're trying to do here. And we do have set as well an advocacy session. A former congressperson that I've had a very nice relationship with over the years from South Florida has been fortunate enough to accept an invitation to come and say, as a former congressperson, as someone who's in the private sector, how do I suggest that you advocate on behalf of your company, on behalf of your industry, to make sure that we do have trade transformation laws and de minimis laws and trade preference legislation that makes sense for the trade industry? So we're really going to be approaching it from some very interesting aspects and different levels.
I love that. Here's the thing that, as we were talking about, from a strategic perspective, and to me, this is where AAEI comes into play, that it's just not for again, the compliance folks and things of that nature. This is one that if you are involved in international trade as a company, your leadership should be sitting here listening to some of these things, taking along those folks that are involved in this type of group on a day in and day out basis. Excuse me. So that based on what you're seeing and hearing at these conferences, then you can get off to the side and said, okay, help me out here. You're hearing firsthand what people have said. Now interpret some of that into, because I mean, quite frankly, this is one of the problems a lot of folks get involved with is that they go to these conferences, they come back and they write up something for the C-suite. Well, it is too complicated or it's not what they're used to dealing with. You got to translate it and forgive me. It sounds insulting, but it's not. You got to put it in layman terms. Your job should be to take the complex and translate it into something that most people can understand. And then you can go and say, and this is where we're going to go to. Who cares what, well, this is a tariff, and then you got your ratios of imports to exports, and you've got this kind of a tariff or this kind of sanction. And this bottom line is, hey, if you do business with China, for example, there's going to be additional duties. Can we source to other things? Lenny, you put it in there as like, there's changes on the GSP. What is GSP? Just another trade agreement. However, if we can source there and include, X% of the components, then we can take advantage of it. And here's where it hits our bottom line. And here's where, if we don't do it, here's what it is. People understand that. The CFOs understand that. The COOs and CEOs understand that. This is where I think your organization, if people really digest what they're seeing and hearing, it's one of those that will really be variables they need to consider in their strategic planning. Would that be a fair statement?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things that we're trying to do with this conference is to help people understand exactly what you said, how to take very complicated, complex theories and trade philosophies or trade regulations that, you really need to read them several times in order to understand what it means and, and translate that into one sentence. How is it going to impact your company in one sentence or less, which is really tough, but that is an important skill for any trade compliance leader within their company is to understand exactly how to do that. So I think this conference is a great opportunity to help figure that out.
Excellent. So all said and done with this, when is the conference again as far as it's in June, right?
It's June 10th, really through the 13th. The June 10th is really everyone coming in, arriving. We do our welcome reception. So you want to make sure you get there in time for the welcome reception because Kathy, I, and the team have some fun stuff planned for that. June 11th and 12th is really the main part of the conference. Then if you're able to stay for June 13th, as Kathy mentioned, we are having an importer-exporter benchmarking session on reducing landed costs and risks. I will say as the local guy, because it's in my hometown of Fort Lauderdale, I'm right down the road. This is a great resort. It's a great place to be. If you haven't been there before, one of the most iconic, popular resorts in Fort Lauderdale, right on the beach, folks. And don't let the June date fool you. We have amazing weather in Fort Lauderdale in June. It's still spring. Great beach bars and restaurants to walk to from the hotel. Some other fun stuff you're going to see is planned by various folks attending the conference. So you're really going to enjoy it. I'll add one more thing just as an example, if I can. For my firm alone, I was thinking about this. We have 7 people that are going to attend. 2 of us are what we would call C-suite, myself and another colleague who run the firm. We have 3 others who are partners, directors at that next level, and 2 associates, who are newer in the field. So just using our firm as an example, we thought it was important to have a good variety of individuals from our firm attend because we're all going to be learning and observing at different levels. So I really encourage you to come with some of your colleagues. And I want y'all to know this year, the way the numbers are looking, it's going to be quite a turnout, primarily importers and exporters. But we're hearing a lot from service providers who want to come because it's important for the importers and exporters to see what's available, what tools are out there. And we're getting a lot more questions from the service providers, realizing that there's going to be a lot of importers and exporters there this year that they want to connect with. So I think it's going to be really a good on all those levels.
I've noticed that, and I'm sorry, Andy, but to your point, Lenny, I've noticed that and when you attend a conference like this, lately, what I've seen is that when you do go to the exhibit hall and you talk to those service providers, it's almost like you're attending a session there in itself, because you're getting educated by these service providers a lot more than, hey, what can I do to get you in this car? Like none of this, lot lizard, fast sell or any. It's very rare that you're going to get that pitch to get you in this car, like that kind of stuff. It's almost like, well, what could I do? Tell me about your problems. Let's see what kind of solution we can have to do. And if I don't have one, I don't have one. But you're getting educated. I really like that. It's kind of shifted that way. You know what I'm saying? Where it's not like that quick sell and like, here's my business card, give me your business card, and and inundate you with emails or whatever. So I have noticed that recently, and it sounds like that's where we're heading towards also here with this conference.
Absolutely. So to register for the conference, you need to go to the AAEI website at aaei.org. And you can sign up there if you haven't already.
Folks, this is a conference that's definitely going to be worthwhile, especially if you're on the leadership. If you're hearing our show, or if you are a listener that you feel like your management should be on it, forward this link over to them to listen in on. This is a good conference to go to. Now, I will say, Lenny and I just got through seeing each other down there just shortly at this exact same conference at a different, it is the NCB FAA on that one. But it is a fantastic, it's a Marriott Harbor Beach. It is, I got to say, the folks at that Marriott, that general manager and all that ought to be saluted, because that was a fine resort. Yeah, there's bumps in the roads on some of the things, but man, I'm telling you what, I felt like I was sitting in high cotton with that right there on the beach. We had a great time, great venue for the meetings. And then, I mean, even if you had a little bit of time, you could just slip right on out, get out onto the beach for a half hour, an hour or whatever, and come right back in. So, and it was a great time, but seriously, it's a great venue. And all that to say, I hope that you folks, that you will sign up for this. And it's worth checking out. Also, check out not only the agenda, but check out the organization, the committees we were talking about. There's going to be top agenda items for certain things, especially if you are in a OGA type or PGA type scenario there with that's the other governmental agencies or participating governmental agencies, by the way, folks. FDA is a big one. There's USDA. There's the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and there's a lot of activities going on in those that need to be looked at. And also then strategy wise, should the China tariffs, the 301 tariffs continue on? There's arguments, has it really been effective? Well, the other question is, how can we be more effective in trying to penetrate China's economy, who's been shut down on U.S. goods as well as other countries around the world? They've not opened up their economy like the World Trade Organization membership should require. There's some things AAEI should be involved in with that. So I say all that to say, it is a organization well worth it. I'm going to tell you, Kathy and Lenny, y'all, folks, look these folks up, because I'm telling you, they are going to forget more than we're going to learn. And on that, it's one of these that they will guide you in the right area. If they don't have the answer, they'll get you the right people. But anyway, that said, Kathy, any closing comments from your perspective?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about the conference and about the organization. They're both very worthwhile. organizations to belong to and conference to go to. So I hope your viewers come and join us.
Lenny, how about yourself?
No, really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you both, Andy, Lalo, and of course, Kathy, and to all of you. If you have any questions about the conference, feel free to reach out to any of us just so we could go through it with you, make sure you understand all the opportunities and everything you're going to be exposed to there. You're not going to be disappointed. Kathy and I and the team have put a lot of thought into it, and it's going to be something that you haven't seen recently for sure. So we hope you won't miss out and you'll come to beautiful Fort Lauderdale in June.
That's excellent. Folks, we will have some contact information in our show notes so you can reach out and appropriately and all of that. Lalo, anything from you?
No, I mean, one last thing that I wanted to say is that maybe a few people have been saying, well, I already went to a conference this year, or I'm already going to go to another conference next year. I just want to say that because of what Lenny and Kathy said and the way they approached this conference, I mean, first of all, Lenny's been scouting other conferences, so he's not going to repeat sessions. Okay, so we're going to get some new content and at a very different level. So this is, again, just another reason why you should consider this conference for that reason. And I do like the fact we're going to be there. Global Training Center is going to be there. We're going to be exhibiting there. I don't remember my booth number, 100 and something. But anyway, we're going to be there. And we go to this one, even though we've been to others or we're going to others, very specifically because it's just not the same as what you're going to get. It's not same old, and I just wanted to emphasize that because it is worth for our company, we're a small company, to make the investment to go to something like this. So it should be for even y'all that are larger companies and may have bigger budgets, because it is very different content that you're going to be getting. So I mean, I'm just personally saying that I feel this is something that you should consider in your budget and actually attend. If I'm wrong, then you'll know, but I really think you're gonna enjoy this. So, but thank you all. And as Andy was saying, we will have links on the description for the conference to register, for the association itself, like just to get general information. And of course, we'll have Lenny and Kathy's contact information for LinkedIn in case you want to reach out. But other than that, I mean, you should not have any like, what do I do? Where do I go? You'll have all that on the show notes.
Sounds good. Well, with that, folks, again, like us, share us, reach out to us on LinkedIn, and hopefully, thank you for being listeners. With that, I guess we're going to turn this back over to you and have a great day.
Thank you very much for joining us. SimplyTrade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show or would like to sponsor SimplyTrade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at SimplyTradePod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. SimplyTrade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by SimplyTrade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.